Welcome to our webinar on teledentistry. We're going to talk about defining teledentistry and what that means for your dental practice, preparing for your first teledentistry call, building a schedule, health history documentation, scheduling emergent visits, preparing an insurance claim, time limitations on filing, ongoing teledentistry, and finally a Q&A. My name is Sarah Beth Herman. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Dentistry Support. I'm really excited to come to you today and share with you some tips and tricks so that you can make sure your dental office stays open, even if your office is closed for business or if it's after hours times. First things first, yes, you definitely want to be taking notes. Today, you're going to get a slew of information you probably never knew before. You might have had small bits and pieces here and there, but taking notes is going to be really helpful, especially if your entire dental team wasn't able to be on this webinar today. So what is teledentistry? Let's talk about it. So you may have heard of telehealth, and if you haven't, telehealth is essentially delivering virtual medical, health, or education services through some form of technology. It's not a specific health service, but it is the use of telehealth systems in dentistry. You may have heard of different applications like Teledoc, where you can actually call in if you have cold symptoms or if you have something wrong and you need information or you need to talk to a doctor, but maybe you can't get to a doctor's office because you have to work or whatever the situation might be. That service is exactly what we're going to be doing in dentistry. We're going to be giving consultations or follow-up care via telehealth systems, and that is called teledentistry. So why do we use teledentistry? So 70% of patients are comfortable communicating with their healthcare provider via text, email, or video in lieu of actually seeing them in person. 76% of patients prioritize access to care over the need for face-to-face interactions with their healthcare provider. That means that 76% of your patients right now, just knowing that they have access, they're going to prioritize communicating with you versus being able to actually interact with you. Just knowing that they can talk to you makes them want to actually get dentistry or get an exam or have that communication with you. And 30% of your patients are already using computers, cell phones, or different mobile devices or tablets to check for medical or diagnostic information. I mean, you and I have all Googled information about some sort of ailment. And so if they're already using their phone or their computer to get diagnostic information, why wouldn't we want to open the door for teledentistry, keep the patient off of Google and actually speaking with a medical or dental professional, and keep them out of the emergency room for dental reasons? So is it legal? So before we get into a lot of the specifics and things that you want to think about for your dental practice, you want to make sure you check your state dental board for information on if teledentistry is permitted in your state. In the beginning, there are some states that do not permit teledentistry, though in the future that may change. So we're going to start talking about exams in teledentistry. They're going to look completely different than what a dentist may be used to or what a patient may be used to. So that learning curve is going to take a little bit of adjustment. Before you get started talking about exams and how to do them, you want to identify your dentistry support system. So are you going to be doing this on your own, or do you have staff or a team that's going to assist you in your exams or your teledentistry? Who's going to be processing your billing? Appoint that person. Find out who's in charge of billing. How will they, or how will you or your practice inform your patients of your availability to perform teledentistry? Will you offer virtual services only to your established patients or to any new patients as well? The ADA actually confirmed that you are able to offer virtual services to established patients and new patients, but you need to decide what your standard of care in your dental practice is going to be. Did you make sure teledentistry is legal in your state? These questions are all great things for you to go ahead and write down and make sure you chat with your team on what you're going to know about your practice so that when you set your plan in action, you're good to go and everything is already set up. Identify the right technology. So do you have a dedicated business cell phone or laptop? If you don't have a dedicated business cell phone or laptop, you may find your dentist wanting to use their cell phone to communicate with patients. But then every patient that's ever had teledentistry done is going to now have a direct line to the doctor at any time. And he may not be, or she may not be prepared to take that call at the time that they call and just want to FaceTime right now. So decide what the software is that you're going to use or the technology is that you're going to use. Next, do you have reliable internet connection? If you don't, you want to make sure that you get that in place because you cannot use a public Wi-Fi. That is a HIPAA violation. It must be a private and strong internet connection. If you have a weaker internet connection, you're going to have pixelated pictures. You might drop the call. It could be very frustrating for you if that connection isn't right. And also testing that out, test out FaceTiming in different rooms of the house that you live in if that's where your teledentistry is going to happen. That way hey, I can't do that in the den. I have to be in the office or whatever that might need to look like for you. Are you going to use free tools like Skype, FaceTime, or Zoom? Some of these are not considered HIPAA compliant in the free versions. Or do you want to use commercial applications? Are you considering using some sort of third party as your teledentistry technology? Now, I'm here to tell you that today I'm showing you all of the ways that you can implement this and build a process for teledentistry for your dental practice without having to spend extra money on that. Teledentistry is going to cost you money because you're using different things that you're not normally using in the office. Like you're not using a cell phone to communicate with your patient in the office. You're not using the office's different form of internet. You're doing this some way else. So try to think about how you're going to use technology that you have access to. So what technology are your patients most likely to have access to and be comfortable using? That's a really big question because if you decide to use like a paid version of Zoom or a paid version of Skype, your patients may not know how to use that. So if the majority of your FaceTime communication or Skype call or Zoom call with the patient is spent teaching them how to use the technology, it can distract you from the time and what you're actually trying to accomplish with the patient via your teledentistry exam. So it's really important to think about user-friendly aspects. Most people are used to FaceTiming on a cell phone. We live in a very technology-driven environment. So if the majority of your patients are going to be more comfortable on a FaceTime with an iPhone situation, even if they have an Android or if they have an iPhone, you can figure that information out when they're scheduling their appointment and figure out what works best for you. So those are really important things to think about. And then also, are you open or able to using multiple platforms for a greater patient choice? So if you know that you are going to use a FaceTime type of interaction, are you willing to get both an Android and an iPhone so that you can connect with both types of patients? Or is it going to be best for you to pick the one that you are most comfortable with? These things you'll have to decide as a business, but there are things you need to put in place so that the very first time you handle a teledentistry call, you're not fumbling over these things. You've thought of the questions and you've planned it out in a very methodical way. So let's say that you get ready to do your first call with a patient. Do you have paperwork ready? Do you have patient intake forms, especially if you don't have access to your practice management software? If you don't have remote access into your Dentrix, EagleSoft, whatever software you're using, what are you going to do to get what you need to perform that call? Are you going to quickly run through a health history check? Are you going to get a copy of your normal patient intake forms and write that all down? What's that going to actually look like for you as the dentist? Or if you're watching this for your dentist, what's it going to look like for them? Do you have an informed consent form, which includes billing and charges? Common questions we've been hearing lately are really surrounding, do I have to tell the patient that I'm charging them for teledentistry? Do I have to tell them that I am billing their dental insurance? That's informed consent. So you want to make sure that you're never misleading a patient, that you're doing something for free for them, or that you are charging them but you're not telling them until later. You always want to make sure that all of that information is handy, and that you have informed your patient. If you can't physically see your patient to get a signature on something, there are electronic signing companies that exist out there. You may have heard of DocuSign, or you might have heard of companies like Sign Now or Hello. All of those are different platforms you can use, and they're minimal costs per month. They might cost you 10 or 12 or $15 a month, but it would allow you to get an electronic signature from your patient, especially if it was a new patient that you had to get insurance information from. Medical and dental history forms for new patients. So for your existing patients, if you do have access your software, the platform that you're using, you want to make sure you download that, or maybe you have that up on a different monitor, or you print that out so that when you're on that call, you actually can take that information in. How will you securely save any images that the patient may have shared with you to include this in the patient's record? So let's say you get on a call with a patient, or you're getting ready to get on a call, and they text message you a picture of a swollen area in their mouth, or what looks like an abscess or something. They sent you some sort of image. How are you going to save those images? What is your process going to be to make sure that you don't forget to save those? Can you update the patient records within your practice management system to record the virtual services that you've provided? So where are you going to store those? Are you going to create a template for those, just like you might have for existing exams in your dental office? How will you submit claims if you have performed a problem-focused evaluation? So these questions, you want to write them down. You want to think about them, because teledentistry, while it seems like this really simple process, the reality is you need to make sure that you have a process in place, because these things will come up later. You will have taken your first teledentistry call, and then all of a sudden, you'll realize, oh my goodness, I forgot to do this, this, and this, and now I'm not going to get paid for that. Or now I don't have all the information to document, and so it's wrong. So you want to think about all of these and run through them. And maybe your practice has thought about them, but there may just be one or two things in here that you didn't quite think of, and you need to make sure you're prepared for. So let's talk about preparing for your very first call with your first patient. So what does that setup look like? So first, let's talk about what your in-person exam looks like. It looks the same way for you every day. I'm sure as a dentist, you're going in and following through in your mind the 15 things that you go over, the stories you tell, the experiences you share, whatever it might be, the talking through whatever diagnosis you have, whatever prescriptions they might need, whatever treatment they might need. You run through the same steps every day. But what that looks like virtually is a little different. So write out each step of what that in-person exam looks like, and then determine what steps can actually be done virtually. It's going to feel different. And even if you are the most seasoned dentist and you've been doing this for 35 years, it's going to look different. It's uncharted territory in the dental world for sure. So decide what steps you need to modify so that you can give the best care and get enough information out. And what technique will you actually need to instruct the patient to do? So maybe when they're in person, you're able to put your fingers in their mouth and use your instruments and do all of that. But when they're on the phone, you can't do that. So how are you going to tell the patient what you need them to do? And how will you document that? What steps do you need to make sure you follow? So these things are going to be important. You want to make sure that you plot all of that out so you know what words you're going to use so it doesn't sound awkward on that call. So here are some tools that you can use when you're trying to instruct a patient to do something that normally, if they were sitting in the office with you, you would actually do. So you can have them turn their camera flash on. That is so helpful. And I've actually personally used Teledoc before, and it's great. They'll tell you to turn your camera flash on and use different things to know what's going on with you. You can ask the patient to move closer to the camera. You can ask the patient to move farther away or closer if they're on a computer. That's really helpful. So if they're just sitting too far away, ask them to move forward. You can use flashlights if they don't have a flash on their camera. And you can also have them use a thermometer if they have access to one to check for fever or infection that way. So these are just a few ideas. Of course, if you have more, share them with your team and make sure that they know, what different things you're talking about. You may have a team of doctors in your practice that are going to now be doing teledentistry. Make sure they all have these tools in their tool belt to be successful. So let's prepare for the follow-ups. So what are you going to do if your patient needs follow-up care? Now, the important thing to know about teledentistry is that teledentistry is a code that is developed for you because you're not able to be in the office, so there is an additional reimbursement. For example, Involve is an insurance company that is giving $12 to $14 for each of the teledentistry codes that you bill out, and they're giving them to you because you had to use resources that you don't normally use, and you're being reimbursed for that, okay? So when you are talking about what are you going to do if the patient needs follow-up care, your schedules need to be organized in such a way that you're not doing teledentistry while you're also doing work inside of the office. Teledentistry is meant for outside of the office. So do you know what procedures you're able to safely provide? Do you know what specialists are accepting patients? So let's say, for example, you complete a call with a patient and now you are noticing, okay, I treated this patient, I did a crown on them, and they're going to actually need a root canal. They need to see an endodontist. What endodontists are open and are they accepting patients, and what's their schedule like? If they're only seeing emergency patients, what days or hours? Know that information so that while you're on the call with the patient, you can nail all that out right away. Okay, you're going to need to be seen at this oral surgeon. They're open this Thursday from 3 o'clock until 6 o'clock. Go through the motions, make sure you have the information. And then how are you going to document your referral and care coordination? Okay, Mrs. Smith, we're going to send you to the oral surgeon on the corner of 1st and Main Street. As soon as I get off this call, I'm going to call them, or while I'm on this call, I am emailing them right now to schedule that appointment, or whatever your process is going to be. Make sure that you know how you're documenting the referral and what that care coordination looks like. Last, How will you keep a paper or digital record of all of the patients needing non-urgent follow-up care when you get back to the office? So if it's not someone who's emergent and you maybe you have 3 days a week that you're seeing emergency patients and it's only emergency patients on this day, but you are not seeing non-urgent or non-emergent patients. What are you going to do with that bundling of patients? Where are they going to be seen at? When are you going to follow up with them? How are they going to get scheduled? These are important things to consider, because even if you only did the exam for them and they don't have an emergent need, they still need follow-up. And that's still an opportunity for not only great patient care and experience, but it's also your revenue. It's a great way for you to continue to make both of those things. So your schedule is going to look a little bit different than you used to. So things to think about. Do you want to identify preferred times during the day when patients can reach you virtually? Especially if you are going to continue patients who need emergency services in your office. So kind of like I was saying before, you don't want to schedule, 8 or 10 emergency patients in a day and then say, in between each one, I can take a teledentistry call. No, that's not how teledentistry was designed, right? Teledentistry was designed for outside of the office. So your emergent patients are going to be a specific date, and then your non-emergent patients are going to be on a specific date or time. So identify those preferred times and figure out when you're available virtually. So if your office is closed right now, or if it closes on certain times or certain days, inform your patients that, hey, teledentistry is available 24/7 on Saturdays and Sundays, or it's available between the hours of this and this on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and days. Whatever that might be for your office, decide what those are going to be so that you can schedule appropriately and everything is organized. How will you schedule appointments and send reminders? How will the patient be informed that they can reach virtual services? Something to think about. You can communicate with your patients in a million different ways. Social media is so powerful. You can put that on any social media account that you're available for teledentistry or virtual dental communication. You can send email, text messages, all of those things. Decide how you want to schedule your exams, and then inform your patients that you are still open. So mass text messaging, mass emailing, call campaigns with your existing team members. These are really, really great ways to communicate what you're available for. If your business is closed, maybe your business can still be revenue producing. Your physical location may not be open, but your actual revenue can continue. And honestly, just think, what if you scheduled, 10 appointments, and those 10 appointments, those 10 virtual teledentistry exams were $50 each on the low end, and you got $50 for each one. That $500 is more than you would have had today, right? So there's a huge opportunity to inform your patients that you are available still. Decide on a schedule for emergent patients, specifically during the COVID-19 or coronavirus pandemic, and stick to that. So if you are taking calls on Monday for teledentistry and on Tuesday you are available for emergent patients, decide that and keep that schedule so that you know exactly where you're putting everybody that you need to treat, and develop that process for what it looks like when they come into your dental practice. So let's talk about the software that you can use. So Skype, Zoom, FaceTime, Facebook Messenger, Google Hangout, any video call method for single person to person communication is acceptable. You always want to check for HIPAA compliance measures with free options such as Zoom or Skype. They're not necessarily covered all the time, so you really want to make sure that you check for that. So for example, like Zoom or Skype, they have free options, but they're not necessarily HIPAA compliant. But FaceTime and Facebook Messenger, those are direct person to person, and it's not like a wide link that anybody, or a public link rather, that anybody can access. You really want to make sure that you're not doing anything like an Instagram live, something on TikTok, or where you're making these mass exams and you're inviting 20 or 30 people all at once, as many people as you can pack in. Let's do your dental exam. We definitely want to stay away from that. It is not HIPAA compliant. It is only a video call for single person to person communication. So what to avoid? You cannot use Facebook Live or other multiple or group conferencing methods. So don't go to Uber Conference and send out a link in an email that says, hey, if you need a dental appointment, our team is here. This is the link to our Teledentistry page. When you schedule an appointment, you'll click here. Nothing like that. It would not work, because that means that everyone has the same link, and at any time someone could click in and be listening to private protected health information about your patient. The key is to avoid anything that would violate a patient's privacy or protected health information. That does include public Wi-Fi. So again, if you don't have strong internet, you want to find a way to get strong internet. Do not go to Starbucks and sit there and do any sort of teledentistry exams. That would definitely present an issue. So documenting teledentistry is very important. We want to make sure you have your proper clinical notes, as always. You want to make sure you're updating health history, the nature of the call, what happened on that call, any findings, diagnosis, prescriptions, over-the-counter recommendations, anything like that. You also need to have a screenshot or a photo of the teledentistry method performed. It's extremely important. Also, the teledentistry that is being covered by insurances is covered during a specific 90-day time period. During that 90 days, the teledentistry codes and services being covered must have these three things notated. So proper clinical note, a screenshot or photo of the method performed, and then proof or a note that the patient was impacted by COVID-19 or the coronavirus during the pandemic. It's very important that you have all three things with the claim going outbound. Those are required in that claim submission. So here's some important things we need to make sure we talk about. Prior to around March 21st through 23rd-ish, teledentistry was not a widely covered service. In fact, no dental insurance, to my knowledge, was reimbursing teledentistry codes. The codes actually just came out in 2019, and just because there's a code, we all know, it does not mean that there is going to be a reimbursement. I mean, there's a million codes out there that have, that are not covered. Not a million, but you catch my drift here. Since they're so new, like I said before, it's uncharted territory. We have to use what we have at our fingertips and take this time to understand how we can get this billing and how we can get reimbursed and do this all correctly. So this is, again, not a service that's ever been paid for by dental insurance companies, and there is only billing for 90 days right now. So outside of that, you're not going to get that coverage you're looking for. Yes, you can collect from the patient if you are not a heavy insurance office, or maybe if you don't accept insurance. I know that there are many opinions on being it having credentialing done with insurance companies, and don't let insurance companies dictate your practice. But a lot of the information we're providing for you here today is utilizing those insurance benefits that are being covered by, or in this scenario for teledentistry, and letting that improve the revenue for your practice. These are important key things that you want to do. And something really great is that almost all of the insurance companies that are covering it, they're not considering the exams against frequencies or limitations. So that's beautiful. And for them to take that out of the equation is a really great thing for both the patients and the office. So let's talk about these dental codes. So there are 2 teledentistry codes that you're going to want to write out. You may know these codes already. If not, they're here for you. So the D9995, that's the synchronous. So that's the real-time encounter. And then the D9996, that's the asynchronous. So this is for subsequent review, or something in addition to other procedures diagnostic wise. And then the codes that are being covered, or the codes that are covered in conjunction with those. So we're going to talk about what I refer to as like a simultaneous billing to dental insurances. When you do teledentistry, you're not going to just bill a D0140. And you're also not going to just bill the D9995 or the D9996. You have to bill both a teledentistry code and the exam code. And right now, the dental insurance companies that are covering the services are covering the D0140 and then the D0170. I haven't seen anybody cover the 9992 or the 0171 right now in conjunction with the teledentistry. And in a couple slides, you'll see here that we're going to talk about what insurances are covering. But just make sure that when you do bill, that if it's a D0140, that you include the proper teledentistry code together. I was talking about Involve, that company, they're paying like $12 or $15 for each of the teledentistry codes, in addition to the limited oral evaluation or the reevaluation. So very important. And then if you do see a new patient that you've never seen in your office, you are going to still bill the D0140, the limited oral evaluation. It is not a 0150. So make sure you stick to just the codes you see here, and that you're making sure that you're billing those in addition to the teledentistry codes. So let's talk about what insurances are paying. So as of about March 24th or so, 23rd maybe, there was 4 insurance companies covering teledentistry. Now we have a much bigger list, and this list is ever growing, but these insurance companies are paying claims for a period of 90 days for teledentistry. So this list is ever changing. We will keep a link to resources on where you can see the lists of all of the insurance companies as they continue to be updated. But we've got Delta, big players here: MetLife, United Concordia, Humana, Principal. So really important that you guys know the insurances of the patients. If they have an insurance that's not listed here, or that you aren't able to verify, really caution that and inform the patient that they may be liable for that exam code, or that exam fee, so that they're aware of that their insurance may not cover that. So, but there are so many insurances, and as you know, when you touch one insurance, it's an umbrella over another. So there is a great chance of coverage here for teledentistry right now. So we're going to talk about some frequently asked questions that we often get asked. So one, can I perform a problem-focused evaluation on a new patient via teledentistry? So yes, during the current pandemic and the current 90-day time frame when these are actually being covered, yes, you absolutely can perform a problem-focused evaluation. So you're talking that D0140, that D0170. Remember, those other two codes we're talking about, or that were listed on the previous slide, the 171 and the 9992, I think it was, those are not currently, I'm not seeing those being covered. So make sure you stick to the codes that, of course, whatever you're going to be doing, be truthful. So if you really are performing, you know, a 171 or the 9992, I can't remember if it's 9992, but make sure that you are billing properly for what you're doing, but know what is covered. So I would definitely encourage, specifically if you're doing teledentistry, that you are always getting an eligibility breakdown. Know what is covered for the patients. It might be something to add to your standard of care. You know, if you know on every patient you get a full breakdown of benefits, and you are always checking, you know, your FMXs and your bite wings and all those other things, adding those teledentistry codes is going to be a very important thing for you. Do exams performed via teledentistry count against frequency when using dental insurance? So many insurance companies are not applying exams to frequencies during the COVID-19 pandemic. Please refer to the specific insurance eligibility verification completed for the plan. So while many of them are not applying it to frequencies or limitations, there may be something different with a different plan. So, and every insurance may not be listed here that's going to ultimately cover teledentistry. So again, that breakdown of benefits, it's going to be so important. Make sure that if you do that exam via teledentistry and you know that it's not counted against frequency, more than likely when you schedule them for their emergency, you're going to have to do an exam again because you couldn't perform all of the things that you were wanting to do with them on the phone. So it's going to be a great opportunity to get another exam billed out because you needed to do that. And so again, increasing your revenue and improving patient experience and care. We want to make sure that not only are we doing that exam when they come back in because you can bill for it, but because it's the right thing to do. Do I need to do anything special with my computer or phone with regards to security to offer teledentistry? This is such a big question, and many of you are probably wondering it. So providers are encouraged to notify patients that these third-party applications potentially introduce privacy risks, and providers should enable all available encryption and privacy modes when using such applications. So I'm bringing up this question because there are going to be a flood of new business ideas and third-party softwares and applications introduced to dentists all over the place. They're going to say a lot of trigger words like encryption and privacy and HIPAA and all of these things that make perfect sense. And all of them, they come with a cost. And if that is a cost you are wanting to spend for the safety and security of your patients, absolutely. If you can consult with a legal team or a HIPAA compliance officer on ways that you can do it in your office without having those, I would encourage you to do that. Of course, teledentistry, like I said earlier, is a very uncharted territory. So it is ever evolving, but make sure that if you are going to use a third-party application, that you are informing your patients. We want to take every single step that we can to protecting our patients. And we know that that comes at a cost in many scenarios. So do your part, but be careful with all of the new stuff that's coming out because we don't know how valid those things are either, because a lot of trigger words, like I said, might be used, like encryption and privacy protection and all of that. But to notify your patients of the potential risk, that can also be in an informed consent method. You can upload that again to an electronic signing platform, have your patient sign that they understand using teledentistry method could introduce privacy risks, and you just want them to be aware. Let them know that the call is being recorded for quality assurance and for their protection. Make sure you're using those key words and those phrases that matter to the patient so that they understand, and also so that you protect yourself and your practice. Can we still perform teledentistry after the 90 days or after the COVID-19 pandemic? The answer is yes, you absolutely can perform teledentistry. Like I said, teledentistry codes exist on purpose. You may not see reimbursements from insurance companies, but you should always bill everything that you do for a patient. I've spoken to a couple of offices recently, and they shared with me that they have been billing out teledentistry for a while now. And I asked, well, what does that mean for your offices? And all of them said things like, well, when my doctor talks to a patient after hours, I just bill a 0140. The reality is yeah, you build that out, but in truthfulness, teledentistry codes should be built out in conjunction with the 0140. So you don't want to just start billing out for a 0140 every time you talk to a patient over the phone after hours. You can do teledentistry, but make sure you bill it out properly. And I'm saying this because what we do when we bill to insurances, it sets the stage for us improving reimbursements in our future. And it sets the stage for what can be covered for patients in the future. So if insurance companies see in this time frame of this 90 days when they're covering it, if they see, hey, there are hundreds of thousands of this code coming out, this is really something that needs to be covered for patients in a preventive way, for their health and safety, this could be a permanent thing for us. I don't know that it will be, and I definitely can't promise that, but we should always be billing. And if doctors are using time outside of normal business hours to communicate with patients and help patients, we should be doing everything in our power to bill out appropriately, make sure the doctors are reimbursed for their time, their energy, effort, extra software they're using. This is all very important. If insurances do not cover the teledentistry codes, what fee should I charge and why bill it out? So that's such a great question. So if they don't cover codes, why should I charge? Well, or what fee should I charge? So the teledentistry code reimbursements that I've seen so far are minimal for those codes, like $10, $12, $15. It's completely up to your office how you want to bill that. You should be billing it because the teledentistry code, again, represents you being, or the dentist being outside of the office using other software, technology, methods, what have you, to perform that exam. So that's what you're being reimbursed for. The software, the technology, whatever, you're being reimbursed for using that. So whatever you feel is an appropriate code. Now, you want to make sure that you look at what your software is that you're using. If you sign up with a third-party company that does teledentistry and has this fancy schmancy app that works really great, but it costs you, $4,000 a month to have it, of course, your fee needs to be appropriate to help reimburse those costs. Now, if you are just doing it on your own and you're doing your very best to make sure you protect your patients and it's not costing you very much, again, your fee needs to be appropriate for that. So what I'm seeing on reimbursements is $10 to $15 for each of the teledentistry codes. That doesn't include the exam. The exam's totally different, and that goes off of whatever fee is actually being charged out for, or what the insurance accepts as a fee, or what you accept as a fee if you're not an insurance office. So do I need to include any special attachments to claims? Yes, proof of the teledentistry appointment. It's extremely important that you have proof that you did an appointment for a patient. So, for example, you have to screenshot the conversation or proof of the exam. So, if you did it on a computer, screenshot that. If you did it via your phone, take a screen capture or take a picture with something else showing that interaction. It is required to have claims paid. Evidence the patient was impacted by COVID-19 pandemic is required. You must write that in the narrative or the remarks for unusual services section of the claim. The appropriate narrative as written by the dentist is also required. Can we perform teledentistry after 90 days? If your state allows teledentistry, yes, you may not receive reimbursement from the dental insurance company. However, you should always bill whatever is performed. How do we process or bill teledentistry performed on cash patients? Payment can be collected at the time of service. And this is just another one too. I heard most insurance companies are closed. How will we be getting paid from insurance companies during the pandemic? That is a fantastic question. So claims submitted electronically are more likely to be processed on time, and offices with electronic funds transfer capability will likely receive payment on time. Any transactions that involve paper billing will take longer under these extenuating circumstances. So if you are not already on EFT, you want to be on EFT. I know there are many opinions about that because of the costs of that arising, and many offices don't even submit claims electronically. If you are not able to get into your office for whatever reason, many of the insurance portals actually allow you to submit claims online electronically. So we want to do that if we can. And when you submit them electronically, as long as you have the proper documentation attached, you're going to see a really quick turnaround time because it's not dependent on someone looking at it. If insurance companies are closed and you submit it online, it's going through some sort of artificial intelligence, or there's an algorithm built in to pay those claims out, and you'll see your payment a lot faster. And EFT transactions, I mean, those come through so quickly, and then you're getting that revenue coming in still. So in a nutshell, what should we specifically do to get our practice open for teledentistry? Great question. So you'll want to write down every step that you see on this next slide. So getting started with teledentistry. 1, have a process in place. What does your process look like? What is your doctor going to say? What are your team members going to do? What technology are you going to use? What is the exam going to look like? What does documentation look like? What do the appointments or the follow-up appointments look like? What does billing and payment look like? These things are essentially what you need to get started with teledentistry and getting your practice up and running. This is a quick hour meeting, 2-hour meeting with your staff, if that. Plan out how you're going to do it. If you need help, walk through this webinar one more time and look at some of the suggestions that we've made to help this become more streamlined for your practice. So the process, technology, exam, documentation, follow-up, and billing and payment. All right, that concludes our webinar. The next slide, we're going to offer you some information regarding dentistry support and how it works for your practice. If you wanted to know, we are a completely remote dental practice or a dental support company. We work remotely for dental offices all over the United States. We perform eligibility and accounts receivable services in addition to phone services. We offer verification of dental insurance benefits, full breakdowns of benefits. We update your dental software. We provide immediate insurance verifications for offices. Our team of 100 plus is currently serving practices all over. We are HIPAA compliant. We provide daily recaps, and all of our fees are flat rate. We never charge a % of production or collections. You can learn more at dentistrysupport.com. Because of this webinar, we are offering a $500 off of your very first month with us with the promo code you see here. Currently, we're going live for around the middle of April for new offices onboarding with us. Thank you so much for watching our webinar today. It was great to meet you and great to interact with you. We are rooting for all dental offices with teledentistry. So get your practice going and get revenue coming in even outside of normal business hours.